Hello there, everybody. I've been saying for a few weeks now that I wanted to get Tomaz Mueller on my show just to do a little interview with him about our sort of journey that we're on. We're on a spiritual journey as well as an awareness-making journey for the independence of mankind. I mean, the independence of mankind to actually step out of the heel or the boot of what would be a government. You know, the word, when they say anarchy, it doesn't mean craziness and lunacy. It actually just means self-governance, where we don't actually have to have someone else telling us what to do every day or every hour of every day. It is about being a grown-up. It is about looking after our own affairs, which is what we're all about. Which is, if you've done any of the documentation or anything like that to send off to any of the Sinister Seven or any of the security agreements or private trusts or anything whatsoever like that, PMAs, anything, none of it is going to work if you have not got the right frame of mind, if you are not correctly aware of everything that is going on and being able to stand in your power as a man or a woman. And part of that is about the spirituality side of it as well, and connecting with source, connecting with the creator, and realizing that we are all part of a huge universal energy, and energy never ever it gets extinguished. Once created, it is just there, and we are all of the creator. All right, personally, I have no worries about death whatsoever. I know just my energy will flow on, my soul will flow on to go on its next journey and learn the next set of lessons. So we can't just rely on paperwork. If you want to be independent, if you want to be ungoverned, if you want to be living in anarchy, which means like just looking after yourself, if you want to look after your own affairs, you have to know it. You have to know what you're talking about, and you have to be able to stand in your power if ever challenged by anyone. I'm not saying everything's easy. We all have to learn. We're all on a journey, right? But part of it, I truly believe, is connecting a lot more with source, with the creator, but also learning how to actually ground yourself as well. And a lot of that is done through meditation. What we're going to be talking about in this interview as well as breath work, which I have found in martial arts, in self-defense, in professional fighting, absolutely priceless. So you cannot ever get away with from breath work, knowing how to do it correctly for the different reasons you do it. And I'm not on about breathing, that just happens, but I'm on about correctly breathing and correctly using the power of breath work. So anyway, here is the interview. I hope you enjoy. I've been trying to get it arranged for a while, but both of us have got busy schedules and we've got it arranged. All right, so take the time to watch it. Okay, enjoy the experience. Hope you learn from it and take care. Here we go. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another show. Today, or I've been mentioning it before anyway on a few of the videos, but we have a very special guest that has been helping myself and Janine when we're doing our meditation, learning how to do it, learning how to use mudras, which is I find a bit difficult with my stiffness in my hands, but I'm getting better all the time with help and assistance from Tomaz. So we get a weekly session there, getting great meditation, and really helps me relax after a very hectic and busy time, helping all of you. So what I'd like to do is to get Tomaz to introduce himself and explain a little bit about where he's come from, his background, and what he's actually doing now. So Tomaz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Peter, for having me on. And yeah, where to start? I grew up in a small little village in the southwest of Germany as one of 5, and I'm the youngest. And as I keep saying, although my mom absolutely hated when I do that, I say I feel like I was the cosmic accident. I somehow didn't really feel fitting in, which is sort of a pattern that's probably filtering through everybody who has had their own journey of awakening or their own journey of growth. I don't even want to use the word awakening because it's just like so cliche-like, but it has been quite a bit of a journey. I worked in a government position as an officer, and basically my position was safe for the rest of my life. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. They couldn't even make me redundant. That's in Germany, we have got this saying Beamtenstatus, which basically means they can't get rid of you. So unless you do something really terribly bad. But then I felt right from the beginning, I can't see myself sitting in an office for the rest of my life and shuffling papers or serving people at the counter, dealing with money and all of that. So, and I was introduced to meditation through a friend of mine. And at that time, I was just thinking, oh, I need something to help me deal with my stage fright, because I was in a lay theater acting group and I suffered from terrible stage fright. And that was my reason of why I meditated. I had no idea what was ahead of me. Within 6 weeks, my entire life had been turned upside down. So I did my first training in Ayurveda in one of the first clinics of Ayurvedic medicine in Germany. Ayurveda, for those who don't know, is the knowledge and science of life. I would say it's the old ancient wisdom tradition, medicinal wisdom tradition originating from India. In essence, it looks at health and well-being from a holistic perspective. So it's your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic well-being. And I was trained initially in doing Ayurvedic body therapies, basically various type of detox programs, massages. And I worked in the clinic for a year, and then I've been invited to start teaching the techniques, and I lived in an ashram basically for 10 years in Holland. I traveled a lot and used my skills to pass it on to train other therapists around the world and actually to open Ayurvedic clinics. But with everything, there came a moment where I felt, you know, Peter, it's like when you wear a shoe and you feel like this shoe becomes too tight and too small. So I felt within the organization, although I'm very, very grateful because it actually shaped who I am today, I felt like I couldn't really express myself. Everything became very dogmatic and prescriptive. You have to teach in a certain way. And as I was going through that journey myself, I felt like there are nuances that actually came through where I shared the knowledge in a slightly different way, putting my own stamp on it, basically, but there was no space within the organization to do that. So I was teaching in Australia at the time. I was teaching at a private college, children from the age of 5 till 11, how to do pulse diagnosis, how to do meditation. It was really beautiful. So I left the organization there and then I thought, oh, before I go back to Europe, I will just have a quick stopover in New Zealand. And that stopover took basically 11 years. So I ended up living in New Zealand for 11 years. And I was teaching at the Natural Therapies College at the time. And also parallel followed my passion that I always wanted to do, which was doing a degree in acting and dance. So, and then through circumstances, my job was made redundant. I moved back to the UK in 2010. I think it was 2010. Yes, had a clinic in central London for a long time. And then in last year, 2021, I knew it's time for me to move out of the city. So took another leap of faith. Talking about leap of faith, there are quite a few in all of our lives, I think. It's not just me, where we just have to jump and then we realize actually that we can fly. And for me, if I look back, I always took decisions, or most of the time took decisions based on my gut feelings. And then when I've taken the decision, I'm thinking, what the hell have you done now? And trying to work my way through a new situation. So basically, I left my clinic, basically very good functioning clinic in London behind, moved to the countryside, and had to learn how to offer support and guidance through online courses. So I created, together with my partner Dan, a few online courses. There is the 5-body Alchemy Healing Series that people can enroll to, which is basically looking at how to clear dense energies in the 5 bodies. So if you look at health and well-being from an Ayurvedic perspective, we are a construct of the 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. Earth is the physical body that basically forms our muscles, our tissues and joints. And then water is the emotional body, fire, the energetic body, air is the mind, anything to do with the mind. And then space, of course, is consciousness, is the higher self. So this healing series gradually helps gets people introduced to the concept of the 5 bodies. What can I do to clear my emotional body? And what can I do to raise my frequency, raise my energy, or how can I still my mind? And throughout those, must have been now 35, whatever, 6 years, meditation has been a stable part of my practice. And I remember, and not just remember, I know that if I wouldn't have found my way into meditation, I would have ended up dealing with addictions, dealing with alcohol probably, and depression at the time, because I was quite aware at a very young age. It's like a lot to take in when you are sort of sensing things and you feel that you are different, and how to deal with that being different. It was the meditation which was a staple anchor. And I started my journey dealing and understanding consciousness, the aspect of consciousness, and what does it mean, consciousness. And I remember at the time, I was very lucky to work with Dr. Deepak Chopra when he still was Deepak Chopra in the early 90s, where we had a project together, and I was fascinated by the quantum mechanical body and the quantum field, and how basically we are connected to an energetic network. I'm not a scientist. I'm far away from a scientist. I work very intuitive, but I just was fascinated from the very beginning. So I got quite a few of the practices through Deepak's teachings at an early stage when he was still Deepak Chopra, let's put it that way. So that has shaped my entire career. I wouldn't like to call it career. My entire journey as a health professional, it's always about consciousness. It's about awareness. And as you know, Peter, having been with us or with me for a while, in essence, it is everything what we do is about creating awareness within ourselves. How can we increase our awareness so we start to read, to understand, to know what is it that I need right now at this point in time? And I remember when I started my Ayurvedic journey, I was very fanatic. I was so taken by the whole science and the philosophy and everything that came from it, that I thought every single person needs to know this. So I was like a little kind of, I was preaching a lot, and that has created a lot of enemies in my life, where people just started to distance myself. So I went from one extreme of the pendulum to a total other extreme. And then over the course of 30-something years, I believe I have found my own voice. I have found my center. And it's not about what I believe people should do, but my whole purpose I see is guiding people, facilitating people to find that truth within themselves. And there's a very beautiful saying in the Vedic knowledge which says knowledge is structured in consciousness, and knowledge is different in different states of consciousness. What that means is everything that we need to know is there within us, and we just need to tap in ourselves and explore that. I don't know, does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, I think well, what we were talking about before, we actually started the interview, just like about like having to actually look at yourself inside and actually really search and work on your own self before you try and help anybody else, and getting other people to realize that it's all within themselves. And that's the only key to everything, the success or any fulfillment of a journey outside. It all has to be done within first.
Yes, and with all the amazing work that you do, people, I'm sure that resonates with you as well, is like, okay, we can provide people crutches, but actually they need to walk the talk. And yes, you have got all those papers and spending hours and hours of developing and creating those tools to help people to step back into their own power, take their own power back. But in essence, if they just use that and think this is it, it's just the starting and the tipping point. It is about looking deep within ourselves and dealing with our own shadows and traumas and fears. And it is a journey. Even with me having been looking at aspects for such a long time, there's constantly new fears, constantly new things that actually come up. But how do I deal with it? Deal with it in a sense of authenticity, just really sitting in silence most of the time, although there are various other practices, and we can talk about it in a minute a little bit more. A lot of people are afraid to sit in silence. They can't sit in silence. So, and then it's about, okay, respecting that this is okay. Taking the dogma out of meditation. Meditation means you need to force yourself in a certain position. You need to have your eyes closed and you need to sort of cross your legs, and this is how you get into meditation. No, that's not true. There are so many different ways of how we can meditate, and it is a journey in itself. So if you find it difficult to sit down and quieten your mind, maybe start off with consciously walking. Do a walking meditation by maybe walking barefoot on grass and really feeling the grass beneath your feet, just taking one step at a time, maybe closing your eyes as you do that if that feels right for you. So create an awareness of your own physical body initially, and creating an awareness of where in my body do I feel some tension, some pain. You may not be surprised, but a lot of people don't really feel the difference between thoughts and emotions. They think they are the same. So it is about understanding the mental body, of how our mind races off. And because our mind can race off, it drags us into certain emotional patterns. And this is what I like to call the ping-pong game between the mind and the emotions. And in my book, I explain this a little bit deeper. So what I mean by that is, let's say we wake up in the morning and we just feel we are not quite all right. We don't quite know what it is, but something is off. And then this is basically an emotion that we feel, that we sense. And this emotional experience that we currently have, which is a reality, translates into a thought. So immediately your mind or our mind will go, oh, maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Okay, so that's a reasoning of how we feel. And then if we give in to the mind will then go, oh, I should have not have that pizza maybe at nighttime, which prevented me from getting a deep sleep. So the mind creates its own story. And then from that little feeling of not quite all right, because the mind creates its own story, it feeds back to the emotional body. And then we feel, oh, I feel guilty because I have done what I shouldn't have done. So rather than just feeling in a little bit uncomfortable, we start to feel really bad. We really start to feel down. And maybe that will trigger an emotional experience that we have had in our childhood or in the past, where we are being made feel guilty for something, let's say, because I brought the aspect of food that we have eaten. So a tiny little thing escalates. And this is what I call the ping-pong game between the mind and the emotions. So one of the key things is to increase awareness is to break this ping-pong game between the mind and the emotions. And how can we do that? There are various practices that will help us. I always say the most simplest way to actually break it is to focus on our breath. And maybe we can go through a very simple breathing practice that will naturally trigger a mechanism where we go into fight and flight, which basically means going from sympathetic mode into parasympathetic mode, into rest and digest. Because our mind, when it gets active, when it starts to run off like a wild horse, there is a inbuilt mechanism within our body that actually can reverse this process, and this is through our breath. So maybe just for a second, let's close our eyes briefly, and then just observe our breath. Observe how our chest rises as we breathe in and how it lowers again as we breathe out. Just keep sitting with that observation for a while. And you will notice naturally your mind is starting to take over, because it's like we are reversing this process of an active mind, bringing the mind back again into stillness. So now the simplest way of how we can reverse this process of stilling our mind is by elongating our out breath. So basically, I use counts. So what I suggest is we breathe in for 4 counts, hold our breath briefly for 1 or 2 counts, and then slowly breathe out for 6 counts. Just do that in your own time. Breathe in for 4, 3, 4, hold briefly, breathe out for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4, hold briefly, and breathe out for 6 counts. 3, 4, 5, 6. So just do a few more rounds in your own time. And then slowly open your eyes again. How was that, Peter?
That was really good. That is one thing that I find that definitely helps me when I'm doing the meditation. I'm by no means an expert or anything like that, but I've learned a lot through the sessions with yourself. And what I was doing before, when you mentioned, walking, we've got, lovely woods and country walks, like where we live, very, very lucky. There's the beach as well, but I like to get into the woods where it's quieter and just long walks. And that's what I was doing to like relax and get meditation, either with, the dogs or on my own. And, but I knew I needed a bit more and a little bit more of a structure. And definitely we're on the breathing, because one thing to say, well, breathe properly. I don't even know really what that means. And I bet you if they were truly honest, not many people know how to breathe properly. You just because your body just does it without thinking. But it really helps concentrate and relax, as well as whatever other, physiological or psychological things it's doing, at the same time. But that's definitely what I find extremely helpful. Last night, especially when I managed to that really difficult mudra and I kept it the whole session, so I was quite pleased with myself.
Amazing. So we'll talk about mudras in a minute. Yes, what you describe here is exactly what is happening is when we slow down our out breath, there is an inbuilt mechanism where our nervous system naturally has to come down to a quieter space. It is not left by chance. It is a technique. So when you breathe out longer or elongate your out breath, naturally we switch into a quieter space. And it is in that quiet space where various things are happening. Yes, our nervous system starts to settle down. But as we become quieter, of course, we become more aware of what actually goes on. There are thoughts that pop up, there are feelings that pop up, there are emotions that pop up, and there will be resistance. So the resistance can manifest that we start to get all fidgety and restless, or the resistance is like, I feel this sadness coming up, but I don't really want to look into that. And this is a beautiful sign that our body gets the rest for the repair to happen. Because how can we expect to create change and to improve our health and well-being if we don't allow that stillness? And yes, walking meditations are excellent way, but I still believe the key is to find a practice in stillness, sitting in stillness and allowing that stillness, which can be very, very scary, then to trigger a process for us to become aware. Because to be honest, when we walk, yes, there is a sense that helps us being present in the here and now. But it is activity. It's an active meditation, which is different to a more passive meditation. So in the process that I've been explaining, I've been using a mantra meditation, for example. What is a mantra? A mantra is nothing but a certain frequency or sound that is repeated in a particular way to bring naturally the mind to a quieter place. So it's like a magnet. The mantra draws you in, whereas our physical body, the mantra that is thought on the level of the mind, brings us naturally within, whereas our physical body, through stored emotions, through stored trauma, because we know that trauma basically gets locked into our muscular body, in our muscles, for example. And as trainer, having run a fitness studio and having been physically active for such a long time, the muscles play a very important role in actually storing trauma. So the mind, through the mantra practice, brings us in. And as we experience the silence, of course, our body releases tension. And that tension is like a bubble that comes up from the depth of the ocean and rises to the surface in the form of some physical movement. I need to stretch myself or shake my shoulders, or I feel a particular emotion that comes up. And then by coming back, utilizing the mantra, you go back inwards. So you repeat that process. And there are various mantras that one can use. Personally, when I teach my patients, I use a selection of individual mantras that are more suitable to the individual person. The most commonly known mantra is the mantra Om in the yoga tradition, which basically represents the beginning of creation, the end of the creation, and the journey in between. So that can be used, but I find if people are interested, it's much better to use a personalized mantra that is basically working for you. But besides of that, breath is so crucial. It's the first thing when the sperm and the egg come together. As soon as this whole process of creation starts to take place, it's the breath that actually kicks in, and it's the last thing that leaves our body when we transition into another life. And people think about breath, yes, exactly what you mentioned, because it's so, how shall I say, it is so automatic, we don't really think about it. But breath is crucial to help us digest. It is crucial for our digestion. What do I mean by that? Think about it this way. Digestion is governed by the principle of fire, our metabolic activity. It's not just the food that we eat which needs to be digested and processed. It's also the thoughts, our sensory experiences. So, for example, watching a violent or destructive movie, for example, creates excessive sensory stimulation that needs to be processed. It is the breath, it is the prana, it is the oxygen, the life force that helps processing those experiences. So when we go to the height of a mountain and we try to light a fire, what will happen? We can't light a fire where there is no oxygen. So what I mean here is, if you think about our digestion, our metabolism, which is crucial in Ayurveda, is the most fundamental aspect of well-being, is to actually deal with improving the fire, or what is called Agni in Ayurveda. And by improving our fire, improving the metabolism, our bodies naturally be able to metabolize whatever food we put into our system, our thoughts. So if you go to the heights of the mountain, we can't light a fire. So if we deprive our body from oxygen, and very often, or usually what happens is, if we are in a fight and flight mode constantly, our breathing naturally is quite shallow. Shallow breath means just in the chest, like very fast breathing in the chest. So what this practice 4 to 6, for example, does, it settles down the breath onto a much deeper level. And by improving our breath, by improving our pranic energy, and that can be measured. There are various tools nowadays of how we can actually measure the pranic life force within our body. Some people are gifted to actually see it in the energetic body, but you can also feel it when you really tap into where is the block, where is in my body the area that there is not enough life force, and how to direct it. So breath is crucial to improving our metabolic activity. Without a proper metabolism, health and well-being is not possible. We can eat the best foods. We can put the best supplements into our system, but if we are not metabolizing it, if we are not transforming it into the message that is contained within the medicine, then we are just producing very expensive urine, or we flush thousands of pounds a month down the toilet without actually doing the job. That's why I personally believe as we move into the future, we are moving away from supplementation. We are moving away from swallowing pills and herbs. And I'm saying this coming from a more physical, herbal, medically trained background. It's all about consciousness, transforming the light within ourselves and working with it energetically. So that was a brief sort of introduction into the importance of breath. And there's so many different breathing practices. As you know, Peter, there is the fire breath, which I really love, where we actually can actively engage our metabolism, which is very good if you have an energy slump, if you feel low in energy, to just boost your energetic body. So many different breathing practices have been around, and by now there's ample of research that actually backs up what it does physically in our body. So I'm not gonna really go too much into that. And when we do our Monday meditation sessions, I try to share as many tools as possible. And there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And the idea is to create a toolkit for every single person, and then people will be able to explore various aspects. Which breath work helps me at this particular moment in time? There is the alternate nostril breathing, which is also very useful to calm down the mind. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that? Anything that pops up, Peter? Because I've been talking a lot.
No,
Sorry.
no, that's great. I was just on the breath work. It is something that I find fascinating. When we were doing a lot of competitive fighting, for instance, without the proper breath work, you wouldn't be able to do anything. But that transformed as well when we started to do courses, and it was for everyone, for children all the way through to the adults. Mainly on the adult side, it was for women. It was like for the self-defense, and trying to teach them that it was mostly reaction and psychology. So I don't want to go off on that angle, but just on the breath work, what we used to say was, look, to control a situation, you have to breathe. And just be calm, breathe. And if you do really slow, deep breathing, it'll calm your mind down, and you'll be able to make more intelligent decisions rather than the fight and flight syndrome, which is like if you run away or react in a much more fearful way, it encourages the assailant to continue the interview, as we call it. They'll interview you. Are you ready to be attacked? And if you've got the confidence and stand and look, breathing properly, they'll leave you alone 99% of the time. So, I mean, it's got so many implications for that. But again, going back, you just mentioned the Monday sessions. I will make sure that all the links go in on the description, so everyone can have a look and see, for be it the meditation sessions or the 5 elements as well, which Janine done that course. She loved that course. But the people that are in the meditation sessions, obviously, we get to have a little chat at the end and everything, and everybody has a different perspective of what they've done, and they've all got their own personal experience, and you can tell just by listening, the ones that have really picked up and thought that suits them, what you just said before, right? Everyone's going to find a different one that's really the favorite, maybe, or works best for them. Like last night, that was probably the first time that I thought that I had not lost it, where you're like, when you're going through the meditation, I mean, sometimes, and I'll admit it, it's just like, you literally can fall asleep for a few seconds and wake up and not realize what you're doing with either your mudra or your breathing, your breath work. So definitely the one last night I will be practicing a lot, but but you can tell from listening to the others that when they've come up and said, when I've found it very difficult to keep with the breath, and that they've loved it. So everyone will always find their own level or the thing that works better for them. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And this is where the beauty lies. And I really, really do not resonate that with within the truther community, there's a lot of you should do it this way, and this way is the only way to achieve ascension and God knows whatever. It's about what works for us. And also it is about being honest with yourself, because what works for you today may no longer be suitable tomorrow. And be in that space of, yes, this is the case, and there's nothing wrong with it, to just add different tools to your toolkit and explore with it. In saying that, I am really honestly sharing here, it was the mantra meditation that is the only thing that I have been doing for over 30 years. That's just for me for a very long time. And everything else have been percolating out of that stable practice. It's important to have, if you really take the journey of self-exploration, self-expansion serious, it is all about finding a rhythm. And there's a difference between rhythm and routine, okay? Routine is something that you force yourself to do on a daily basis. And if you have a more sharp, now I'm bringing in a little bit of the Ayurvedic understanding, a pitta mind, which is very much driven by focus, it's driven, they need a structure, they are very structured in itself. A routine is perfect for them. But then you have got those who are more governed by the air element, which means they are more flowing, they are more creative. Then a routine would be too rigid because they get bored. You may have had people in your gym that actually constantly jump. They go and do this practice one day, the next practice that day. So with the tools that I provide, it's about finding that will work for you, and at the same time allowing that process to be fluid in the exploration, and then anchor it. So finding a routine, finding a rhythm, is crucial for spiritual, I call it a spiritual hygiene regime. So what is your spiritual hygiene regime, for example, Peter, if you don't mind sharing with the audience? It could be anything.
When you're saying the spiritual, how do you mean? Do you mean how you actually sort of like relax yourself or protect yourself from outside influences?
What I mean by spiritual hygiene regime is basically, what is it that you do on a daily basis that helps you to anchor yourself, where you prepare yourself for the day, where you set yourself up, and that's something that is with you on a daily basis, basically. Besides of the physical aspects, we all ideally, or I believe so, have showers, brush our teeth, and feed our body. So what is it, the anchor that is with you on a daily basis?
Well, I would think it's just a lot of it, even before I started to try and get more into the meditation, was definitely the clearing my mind, getting rid of, let's just call it excess junk that's in my mind, so I'm not like worrying about anyone else's like issues or anything, because I do have to deal with things, and that's my tasks in life, is to help other people through their hassles. But to do that, I can't be worrying about anything else, which is what I used to love, going for the walks with the dogs, or even by myself in the woods, and just like silence and clear it. And I would, ask the trees permission to connect with them and touching them, which, like, the old tree hugger scenario makes everyone gets, you're crazy, the old tin hat syndrome,
Yes.
But that's what you have to do, I believe. And it's like how to completely clear yourself and relax yourself and be ready for whatever presents itself, be it someone else's problem that I have to help them with, or an issue that could come up for myself as well, or just to get through that day. So that's really, I think, what I would do, which is why I know that, like, when I was looking at watch Janine do your course, the elements, and then it was the offer of getting into the meditation. I thought, well, I need to do more. I just need to actually push myself more to accept that I'm not good enough to do it on my own, and I need some assistance and help to get further. And that's what I've done, and it is working. But so is that right?
Yes. Basically, what you're saying is you've got your own process that you do, your own little bits and pieces on a daily basis that will help you to set yourself up for the day, to help you face your audience, face your clients, the people that come and seek help. And it's the same for me. And I know if I allow myself to get distracted, and believe me, I do allow myself to get distracted here and there, I know exactly then that I make myself much more susceptible to lowering my frequency and exposing myself to my own fears, as if I put my armor up, if I put my energy body up and raise my frequency in the morning. And I do that on a rhythmical basis. Coming back to routine versus rhythm, the rhythm is that you find naturally an inclination to actually do it. It is not an obligation. Routine is almost like very obligatory. I need to do this. If I don't do this, I don't feel my best. That's quite a rigid way of thinking. But a routine is you let it flow, but within that flow, you know you have got your structure in place. Does that explain the difference between rhythm and routine?
Not yet. I think so. And whereas well, yeah, it's just to actually develop your own tools and systems, because you have to protect yourself. Where you just mentioned that there. And I think not only because we talk about that quite a lot when I'm telling people, if you want to become living the private, some people would call it, becoming sovereign. I'm not the best fan of that word for other reasons, but everybody understands what that actually means, though, or comprehends, I should say, what that actually means and entails by standing in your own power. And it is very similar, in a lot of ways, like spiritually, what you're doing and what I'm doing is to help people sort of release fear and move away from fear and live in a freer and more energetic environment without letting them get bogged down, by routines. However, you do need to protect yourself if you want to move into that field. You can't just run in blindly, which is what, unfortunately, a lot of people that I'm helping have done already, and then they find themselves in a bit of a sticky situation that we have to try and remedy before they move on to try and gain that extra freedom.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, which is one of the, I've talked about it a lot, and I always do, and I've mentioned it for a few weeks now that I wanted to bring you on, because I don't think you can have one without the other. What I mean is, say if you want, let's just say the word sovereign, because then everyone will comprehend. So you want to be sovereign and you want to stand in your own power, but you cannot do it by standing as a solid lump of wood and not being flexible and moving in the spirituality of it, and then cleansing yourself and protecting yourself through the spirituality side and making sure that you do put up like a dome around yourself of love and light, and which is it might sound so cliche really, but without that, then you're not going to get there. You're not going to be successful either being sovereign, because a piece of paper, that's only going to go so far if you haven't got the belief and the spirituality to protect you inside, and knowing that you can keep the fear away.
Yes.
And I think if you connect with your higher self and you connect with the creator or source, then that's the only way that you can actually feel the actual pure protection and power to be able to not only expand on your own soul, right, but also to protect yourself from outside forces that are going to try and disturb you no matter what you do.
There's so much that we can talk about it, and I love this conversation because it flows. There's no script, it flows. And while you were talking, there are quite a few things that sort of popped up in my head. Number one, the flip side of fear is love. So we can't love anybody else. We can't love our family if we don't pay the respect and the love to ourselves. So it's like putting the oxygen mask onto ourselves. What gets in the way are all those destructive emotions and feelings that we carry, all the memories that sit in our system that get triggered just through one word that somebody might say, and we may start to explode. And like I indicated earlier, I am somebody, yes, I was born in Germany, although I have a dual citizenship. I lived overseas for most of my life, spent time in Australia, New Zealand. But this German aspect is still very strong in me, that I feel for myself, if I know that there is some shit that I, have to deal with, I just like to dive in, get it done and over with. So this is what actually took me to explore the tantric work. So I've been also trained as a tantric teacher, working with the sexual energy, which is the most powerful energy in our body, and then learning how to direct the energy, bring it up into our own higher energy centers, to use it to connect to source. And I remembered one of the first tantric courses or training courses that I went to. I was sobbing in tears. I just couldn't hold back, because there was all this deep sadness that was sitting there. And by actually working with the sexual energy, using the breath, it just bubbled up to the surface. But I was prepared, because I'm like, okay, just bring it on. I'm not somebody, if I need to deal with some challenging situations, I prefer to do it all at once, concentrated. That also had taken me to the jungle of Peru and to explore plant medicine. And prior to my first visit to Peru around 2015, I didn't smoke. I've never tried any drugs in my life. Yes, when I was younger, I struggled with alcohol, and this is where the meditation and everything come in. So, but I went to Peru working with plant medicine, not actually really knowing what it truly is, but I felt the calling. I felt that this is what I wanted to do and what I needed to do to face my shadows. And it is, especially plant medicine, is not for the faint-hearted. But if you have that kind of warrior instinct and say you are committed to yourself, to your own personal growth, and being committed to yourself, to your personal growth, that's how we can help others and how we can expand. It is a scary thing, but I'm not somebody who shies away from those scary moments. And I must say, it is nowadays, you hear a lot about ayahuasca ceremonies, and people do that in a private environment. There are groups here and there within the UK and where people go. I personally feel it is a very sacred process. You need to again protect yourself, because by actually going into the journey of plant medicine, and this is so much more than just taking a medicine and having a trip, so-called. It is about getting in touch with the teacher within yourself. You have to protect yourself, because if you're not careful, other entities, other energies can come in, and then you have to deal afterwards with the ripple effect of those plant medicine journeys. But it's so much more than using plant medicine to have the visions and to look into the future, to understand the matrix that we are in. Plant medicine, for example, is also about sitting with a plant that actually doesn't have an hallucinogenic effect, and exploring its energetic. What does it do to me? And this is how originally in the ancient Vedic tradition we were to explore plants. We took a plant, we prepared the medicine, we just sat with that plant and listened to the spirit of plant communicating to us. So why I was saying this is for those who feel like, okay, bring it on, I have had enough of this back and forth battling with my own feelings and emotions, there are quite a few hardcore practices, but it is so important to have the right guidance through these processes. It comes back to what Peter, what you were saying, is protecting yourself even within the spiritual practice. Because if we open ourselves up to source, if you are not protected, anything can get in the way. Then what happens is, rather than dealing with the shadows, we have some other stuff that we need to deal with. Because as we expand our light, the shadow aspects, the shadow gets rattled. We are rattling the cage. They don't want to move. And here we talk about entities, energies that are actually attached to ourself or can be attached to ourself, causing a particular addictive behavior, causing for certain mental patterns to stay with us, making it difficult for us to improve our well-being, to raise our frequencies. So very, very important to find a way of protecting yourself within your spiritual practice. So I wanted to just open up the conversation to all the different possibilities. You were also talking about mudras, and let us just briefly explore the topic of the mudras. So mudras in essence is a very particular position of our fingers that we direct our fingertips in a very particular way to achieve a particular outcome within the body. And there are so many yogic traditions that refer to mudras. If you look at ancient Egyptian symbols, if you look at the Buddhist philosophy, if you go to the Vedas, even if you look at the Bible and Christ, of how Christ and is portrayed, there is a particular way of how the fingers are being placed. So if you look at it, if we would have X-ray vision, we would see that the tips of our fingers are extremely sensitive, and they are like beams of light that actually shoot out. That explains when we have a splinter on the tip of our finger, here where the areas where they are very sensitive, why it is so painful. Just a tiny little splinter can cause so much pain because it's very, very sensitive areas. So what we do with the mudras, we use a particular intention, we redirect those energies rather than allowing them to go out, redirect them back into our body, into our physical body, and through that let it ripple through the subtler bodies to create a particular effect. So let's just use a very simple mudra, which I also like, which is basically bringing together the masculine energy within us with the divine feminine and connecting it with our inner child and connecting it with the child that we need to bring on board. So basically, if you look at trauma in life, if you look at patterns that we carry, and why do we react in a certain way always the same, is because possibly either in this life or in a past life, and the soul hypnosis session will shine light on that. But why we react in a particular way very often as an adult is because we still experience the moment as an adult through the eyes of a child that has experienced a particular trauma. So we haven't actually brought that child into the adult life. And this mudra, for example, will help how to do it. So it's very simple. We connect the index finger with the thumb of the left. The left side of our body is a representation of the divine feminine energy. And then we connect it, we interlink it with the divine masculine. So we create this kind of link with it. And then we utilize we bring together the other 3 fingers, the index, the middle, and the ring finger, bringing them together, and we place our hands comfortably in our lap. So let's add on to this with the breath. So with the 4-6 breath, and let me see if I can quickly, as we go in, bring in sound and sound frequencies at the same time. So just start closing your eyes if that feels right for you. Just close your eyes. Focus on the breath. Hold the mudra. 4-6. Hold the mudra as it is. And we will go into a little practice. I just need to change the setting on Zoom for a second. Okay. Right. Hold the mudra comfortably. Try not to force it, to control it. Just very gently hold it. Place it in your lap. Relax your shoulders as you settle into the mudra. And then breathe in for 4, hold for 2. Breathe out for 6 counts. Find your own rhythm in the breath. The sound, this is a particular track which is called Waves of Light, which help connecting to our own light within, to the light of Source. And if you find yourself, your mind is drifting off, going into some thoughts of what happened before this, you listen to this interview, or maybe what you need to do after, just simply bring it back effortlessly to the breath. It's perfectly alright if the mind drifts off, bring it back. That's all you need to do. And we will just sit in silence for a few minutes. If it feels right, just let go of the mudra. Just become aware of your physical body, your feet on the floor, maybe move your body if you need to. And when you're ready, just open your eyes slowly. This was just a very quick way of also introducing sounds and frequencies. I personally really feel the power of sound, because sound and frequencies, sound is linked to the subtlest of the 5 elements. It's linked to ether or space. And that is linked to the sense of hearing. And if you think about it, our body is mostly made out of space. 99.9999% of our physical body is actually space. And by actually exposing ourselves to very specific healing frequencies, it will activate the body's own self-repair mechanism and naturally raise the vibration, raise the frequency of our body, so that healing can actually occur in a natural way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was brilliant. But that's what I really enjoy, you know, like on the Monday sessions, you know, when we can actually like learn how to do it, and then you get the chance then to like practice it. But the good thing is as well, because you have the videos, you know, that you've recorded, like, you know, if anyone does join there, so they can go back and get assistance and practice that, can't you?
Yes. Yes, all of the meditation recordings are available if you join the meditation group. But it really sort of, you feel called, if it resonates with you, then you will feel called to explore some of the work that I'm doing a little bit deeper. But even if that doesn't feel right for you, perhaps maybe just explore the breath. Just simply sit with the breath that we have been teaching here, and sit with the mudra and see where it takes you. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much for that, for doing that bit of meditation as well, but then explaining sort of like a lot more on the background and, you know, your history as well. Just one thought there. I've actually seen the videos of the jungle that you go into in Peru, and spoke to can't remember his name now.
Locum.
Yeah. So, you know, like a few different things, we've been having conversations. But I mean, that just looks absolutely amazing. Obviously, you learn on the plant medicine, etc. as well. But you actually got to stay in one of those huts, just like literally in silence, like overnight, wasn't it?
Yes. So basically, I've taken a couple of groups to the jungle, to this particular place where I feel called to my teacher Slocum in Peru. And the journey there in itself is already something. So basically you fly into Lima, into Peru, and then there is another 1.5, 2 hour flight to Iquitos. You cannot get to Iquitos other than by plane. So there are no roads up until now. They try to change that. But to get to Iquitos, if you take the water route, it takes you about 8 days to get to Iquitos. And then from Iquitos, it's another couple of hours or an hour and a half into the jungle. So you're basically cut off everything. You have got your own hut. There is no hot water. There's no electricity. There is no, there are only compost toilets, but you're very well looked after. You go on a minimal diet, basically a very healthy plant-based diet, but also in some occasions there's fish and meat, because when you go through these strong processes, it's good to nourish your body and to strengthen your body. And then you go into what is called into a dieter process. So that means you sit with one plant where you take the plant medicine which has been prepared over a period of time, where you take the liquid of that in increasing dosage over 1, 2, 3, 5, up to 7 days time, depending on the time that you have. And that allows you really, because you are in silence, and other than the people who come and clean your hut and the food is being brought to you, you're literally left on to your own devices, left in your own process. So there is, for example, sacred tobacco, which is prepared as a liquid, and the effect of tobacco is really to dig up those things that we know are there, but we don't know what exactly they are. It helps us staying grounded. It helps us being protected. So I found initially tobacco was one of the most challenging remedies that I took, or plants that I took, and tobacco hasn't got any hallucinogenic effect. It's not about going off in outer space and exploring this or that. It's very grounding, down to earth, and you sit with your discomfort. You all of a sudden start to realize the loops that we naturally get into. We start to realize our patterns. And as we go through that process of releasing those patterns, you literally sit in the being uncomfortable until your subconscious is willing to understand the entire process. Where does it come from? And you are actually ready to let it go. And that can usually happen through purging, but it can happen also in other different ways of how you can let go of those patterns. And that will then reset your body and reset your physical structure, but also on an energetic level. And it is basically sacred mapacho, where I feel extremely grounded. I feel extremely centered and present. And that's what tobacco has given me. Because in the past, you know, Peter, it's been easy for me to go off, to just sort of meditate and just float off. But what I found many, many years difficult was to stay grounded, to stay present, living a 5D life within a 3D world. And it is plant medicine and my own personal mapacho ritual here at home and rapé ritual that has helped me staying present, staying grounded, and feeling that strength to actually face the challenges that life has thrown at me or continues to throw at me. It's a journey. It's really a journey, and it's an understanding about how we navigate ourselves through that journey, rather than focusing on the end goal and thinking, oh, it's, you know, I must laugh, because if I look back, I was so focused on enlightenment that I totally sort of blocked out any of the stuff that was deeply seated in me. It was all about meditating, going up higher and transcending it. Yes, transcending it is a part of it, but for me personally, bring that awareness into the now, transform it, transcend it, bring it in with awareness rather than spiritual bypassing. And a lot of the people within the community I have been exposed prior to the beautiful soul family that has come together in the last couple of years, such as yourself, JC, Joanne, and all the lovely people, I was bypassing those experiences. I was shying away from dealing with my shadows and doing the shadow work. And with the understanding I have now, we cannot ignore it. If you want to grow, if you want to become independent beings, become strong within ourselves, it's an absolute must. It is the responsibility that we carry to true source and creator to actually deal with those aspects. It's not just for selfish reasons. We have a responsibility to the people that we carry, that are in our lives, to do the transformation ourselves and not to expect anything external to do the work for us. It's not going to work. And yeah.
Yeah, which is, again, it just brings it back to why, you know, I wanted you to come on anyway, because you know, it's whoever likes it, whoever enjoys it, you know. It is one of those things. Not everyone's going to be wanting to listen to what we're saying, but it's like about, they cannot be an independent soul if they're living in fear and they're not actually investigating themselves and really getting to grips with. To be independent, you have to be strong, but you have to be spiritual, and you have to look inside yourself and look for your own faults, but also living in the moment as well, really. You know what you're saying there. So I think too many people you know, live sort of like have their goal, and this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I want to achieve. So and then you don't realize what you're going through, you know, and you actually miss out on living the actual existence that you're supposed to be enjoying anyway. That's, you know, we're all put here for a human experience.
Yes.
You know, we are a soul having a human experience. So we've been sent for a reason, or chose to be here for a reason. And if you don't actually look at what you're doing, they're going to send you back again, you know, and correct the mistakes that you're actually making. I think a little bit different, but that's why I think I just love dogs so much as well, because they purely live in the moment. You know, they don't plan it, what we're going to do tomorrow, where it's just like, well, this is it. This is the existence, and this is what we're doing now. But the description of being in Peru, that it just sounds probably nightmarish for a lot of people, but to me, it just sounds idyllic. To be able to just be left alone there and just like pure silence and relaxation. I know you would have to fight a lot of internal demons, I think.
Yes.
You know,
but the beauty is you will be held, and you will truly be held, not just by the beautiful people that are there to look after you, but you will be held in a space of source, in a space of pure love, really. And and the signs that come is like the animals, the birds in the jungle, and there are no windows, so it's all netted off, of course, to prevent as many mosquitoes to come in as possible. But it's just beautiful. It's just like, and I missed it because I haven't been in the last couple of years. So I tried to create the jungle experience in my own little flat in London last year when I did the 4-day blackout retreat, which was really sitting in the darkness, which amplified even more some of the stuff that was going on. And I was working with Rose. So in meditation, I was given information to prepare medicine with white rose. And I was drinking the white rose and exploring the spirit of the rose and what it does, and helping me in my own process. But that was another even more scary process, to sit in the dark, no stimulation. Of course, it was central London. I could still hear some noise, but I literally blacked out my entire flat, including the light in the fridge, including the light on the kettle, and then trying to navigate myself through that process for 4.5 days.
It would be more effective doing that where you live now, wouldn't it? Because it's
absolutely
in the middle of nowhere. It just looks beautiful out there, but definitely not in the center of London, that's for sure.
No, but it came with its own challenge, and I'm glad I did it. If I would were to do it again, I would find a place where I would be looked after, rather than me needing to looking after my food and creating my little porridge in the evening. It was a challenge in its own, but if I am to do it again, there are places where you can actually go which are totally soundproof. And in fact, there is just quickly, before I know that we have taken a lot of time already, there is a treatment in or a process in Ayurveda that goes back to thousands of years, where the ancient rishis or seers in the Himalayan mountains go through a process of Kaya Kalpa, which is a total transformation. They sit in a cave for an extended period of time in total darkness total minimal exposure, sensory stimulation, no sound. They are given particular mantras, and the only thing they get is some medicated herbs and milk to drink, and they get particular mantras, and in that process the body undergoes a total change. So basically, initially your hair starts to fall out, your nails start to fall out, your teeth, which sounds very scary, but the herbs, with the spiritual practice, it requires a very strong mind to sit in that process without freaking out. You can imagine why it is not practiced commonly in the West for every Hinz and Kunst to actually do it, because it requires quite a strong mind. And then they come back and they literally look 20, 30 years younger, totally rejuvenated. And this is still practiced today. It's still practiced in the Himalayan mountains today. That's where there are all those seers. Some of them are over 150, 300 years old, because they go and undergo on a regular basis those processes. So wow. I think a little touching, getting my feet, getting one little toe wet in the blackout retreat has given me a glimpse of the strength that is required to actually undergo this process. But there's so much that we don't know, so much that we have been deprived of, all the knowledge that has been there, we are talking about med beds, for example, and I did a journey about a year ago or 1.5 years ago where I explored the med beds, and I saw on another dimensional level a parallel version of myself working with the med beds, with people, with children at a particular moment in time. So all of that technology is available to us and it's coming back to us. We are living in an exciting time, and we can either run away from it or we can fully embrace it. So yeah.
See, that's the thing is I think the big realization that I try to put across to others as well, which I've definitely experienced and came to a knowledge of myself, is like moving up to and trying to live more in a 5D existence and move away from the 3D existence that they've got everyone planted in. And I'm trying so hard to get other people, man and woman, to get away from a television. Yes. Right, and to just completely disconnect from any kind of mainstream media or lamestream media, as I call it, and just try and do things like the meditation, which I'm trying hard now to, not trying hard, I am just doing it. I don't try, I just do, and then realizing, yeah, it's a scary journey. What they're trying to create is really scary, but the only way to actually move out of it, but also to assist mankind to move out of it, is to truly experience it and try to move up through meditation with yourselves, or at least get it into your mind, and being an independent sovereign entity is by getting up to a more of a 5D level and going with the flow, not living in the fear base, which is what they're trying to create. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's the key. It's truly the key to actually understand that, like I always say, focus on expansion and healing will become a natural byproduct. So focusing on expansion will transmute the fear and transform it into love, into respect, into an inner knowing. We do not need these media channels or anything like that, because first of all, we know how infiltrated it is. There are subconscious messages and that actually prevent us from tapping into the light. Everything that we need to know, we are our own gurus, and I keep saying the time of gurus are over. It's totally over. Everything that we need to know is within ourselves. When we tap in, or if we are brave enough, courageous enough to tap into that field of inner knowing and be willing to just fall down or fall up or raise up to that experience, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed this. I think we'll best cut it off now. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. But I don't want to lose too many of the audience. But thank you very much. You know, I really, really appreciate it. Hopefully that the audience will be the same, and they'll enjoy everything that they've heard. And you know, what I'll do is I'll put all of the contact details and the links and everything, so they can have a look at the different courses that you have available, the meditation, as well as the 5 elements and all the rest of it. But once again, Tomaz, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we'll hope to do it again, yeah?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.